All right. Welcome, guys. We're going to go over the Alpha League list. And for anybody who doesn't know what Alpha League is, it is a tabletop simulator tournament that's going on right now. They have about 180 participants this season. And just to relate, last season was only 150, and the season before that was 120. So because of all the stuff going on right now, I mean, it's just been increasing more and more and more as it's been gaining momentum.
Yeah, it seems to be like a really big thing. I was doing a little bit of research saying this has been going on for at least since 2018 as an organization, but I can't imagine it's been anything like this scale on previous years.
Yeah, I feel like with the COVID and everything, I mean, Tabletop Simulator has just been the go-to place for a lot of people to kind of keep with this hobby and keep going.
Yeah, I've definitely pivoted to Tabletop Sim.
Yeah, definitely. My friends and I were playing BattleTech on it. Like, I can't imagine doing a full 2,000 point 40K game, but like BattleTech is good for a tabletop.
I'm playing 2K games most Mondays on Tabletop Sim. Admittedly, I'm playing an Iron Warriors list. I'm playing a tank heavy or a demon engine heavy list. I can't imagine what it'd be like to be running 180 Orc Boys list.
Yeah, like looking through those lists for the Alpha League for Chaos, they're all like Magnus the Red and Double Order Change and a little 6x3 Nurglings, but the Nurglings are the only infantry in the list.
The thing with Nurglings is they're infantry. They're swarms. They're large bases, few actual models, which makes them easier to move around in the mechanics of Tabletop Sim support picking up one or a small number of models and moving them. It really doesn't like moving a mob of 30 cultists.
Meanwhile, I'm playing things with defilers and stuff like that, but they're so big.
Down, move it, done.
Yeah, but the problem is they were so big you couldn't even get them in between the buildings, so I had defilers that were just stuck back in my deployment zone.
I mean, that's one of the things I really want to think about when we come to doing a list analysis is 9th edition really leans hard on the terrain. It's buried halfway through a paragraph, but the guidelines are a terrain piece for every 12 by 12 square on the board or part thereof.
Oh, yeah.
So that's 24 pieces of terrain on a standard 2K point board. And that's an enormous amount of stuff to navigate around, to move over, to move under, to move across. Now, it's not all going to be stuff that blocks movement. It's not all going to be stuff that blocks line of sight, but enough of it is that going all in on demon engines or all in on tanks or all in on big models that can't fly is difficult just for maneuverability.
Yeah,
and going all in on extreme range stuff is difficult for line of sight.
Yeah, and at my FLGS, we've been helping out making a little bit more terrain because mostly they had the big ruins that were so popular in 7th and 8th edition, and really a lot of the small pieces of terrain that we've been making have been barricades, which of course block movement or hinder movement and hinder large base models. So,
all right. So before we get started, why don't we go around and kind of introduce ourselves and talk about what kind of armies you typically play, so we can get some kind of relation back to these lists that we're going through. So, Cold Psych, you want to go ahead and go first?
Yeah, so I started playing 40K back in 4th edition. Started with Eldar, then was pretty active. Started up Dark Angels Deathwing in 5th edition. Placed pretty well at some big tournaments back in the day. 6th edition, I started getting out of it after I went to ATC American Team Championships, just because the pure competitiveness of a team game, it didn't really appeal to me as much. And then got back in early 8th, and I've been playing pretty much continuously ever since. Started up Chaos whenever the new Chaos Space Marine kit got released, because I absolutely adore that kit. I love painting it. I think I got about 80 of them. So, but yeah, and my goal for this 2020 year going in was I was going to be #1 best in faction for Thousand Suns, and for a large portion of the year I was, I got in my 2 tournaments early, and then everything got shut down from COVID. But
how about you, Legroom?
So I first got into 40K way back in mid 3rd edition. I'm old school. But I had a hiatus of about 10 years. So I was playing in 3rd edition, played a little bit at the start of 4th, and then I got back into it the year before last. Back in the day, I was a Tyrannid player and a Tau player when the Tau book first came out. So, dating myself here again. But these days, I come back in, I'm going, look, I want a different kind of experience. I'm a bit more of a interested in arms and armament, so I was looking for a force that I liked the narrative behind and would support like a more tank focused or a tank centric play style, and so I jumped in on Iron Warriors, which has been really good fun. Very much enjoyed that kind of philosophy of list building, so I tend to be going for a more armored, or I'm leaning more into Dreadnought, Strict Hellbrutes and Demon Engines now, just because there's more support there for them in terms of rule set and abilities to interact with them. But I want my Predators to work. I want my Vindicators to work.
All right, very cool. So I've only really been into the game the last 2 years. And once I saw that chaos, I was like, yeah, this is for me right now. It's just something about the demons. I love the feel of the demons. So looking around, started off with some World Eaters, but really fell into place with the Iron Warriors. For those of you who don't know us, we all kind of gathered around through the Iron Warriors Discord, where we got this whole thing started. So then decided, you know what, let's get some YouTube videos going, see what we can do. And so here we are.
It's a nice little community.
Yeah, it's a great community. So without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and dive into these lists for the Alpha League Tournament Season 6.
Yes.
All right, first we have AlexE. He is running the Death Guard Nurgle Demon list. This looks to be his first season out of the last 3. I've only been able to go back to Season 4 to see, kind of the history of players, so that's what we're going to go back for. All right, so he's in Group 12. He is running a Battalion Detachment and a Demon Patrol.
Yeah.
So the first thing that really stands out to me is the double demon princes that he's coming in with.
The thing with the demon prince is that aura will apply to the Nurgle demons as well as the Death Guard. So even if they're obviously like they've got demon princes with wings, one of them is a winged demon prince. So that is probably going to be slamming in early, slamming in hard, slamming in first. But it can be boosting the beasts that we see in the other detachment. So there is that little bit of synergy going back and forth there.
Yeah, it looks like he's also got a Poxbringer in the Demon detachment with a Psychic Power Fleshy Abundance. Not entirely sure what that does, but I know if it targets Nurgle demons, it'll target the Demon Princes. So what really interests me with this list is the 2 squads of 20 Plague Marines.
That's a threat.
That is like I understand one big squad because you got the Cloud of Flies to protect them, but I'm just wondering what the delivery option is for the second 20-man blob.
I think that it might literally be, okay, you've got enough anti-infantry firepower to deal with one big squad. I can just move that up the board, and I've got 20 toughness 5 plus feel no pain, because this is 5 plus feel no pain because this is before the new stuff comes out. I've got 20 wounds of OBSEC on something. You're not charging that with 20 models of troops. So that you're not taking that objective off me, and that takes a hell of a lot of shooting to winnow through that. And I don't know what they've got to deal. I don't know how much blast is in the meta at the moment.
Looking through those other chaos lists, it didn't really look like there was a lot of blast weapons per se.
No.
And that might maybe be a function of that this is on TTS and nobody's really expecting large units that would be susceptible to blast. So maybe this is kind of like an anti-meta pick in a way.
Like it's and again, the other thing to point out is he's backing that up with 3 Plague Burst Crawls.
Yes.
So he's going for low unit count. He's going for pushing forwards and just being able to maximize output. And the thing is, with those big squads, it's easy to get them within the Demon Prince auras. It's, you could have, even in the new currency rules, it's relatively easy to have a couple just kind of springing out of one side to get within that 6-inch bubble.
Yeah.
Again, Plague Surgeon buffs, you can really work and get a lot of table coverage from the big squads, and then you've got that minimum size cultist squad there for, I don't know, maybe holding a backfield objective for cheap points.
That's what I do with my cultists.
Yeah.
Like, if I ever have to move them, I get kind of annoyed. I'm like, you're making me do something with these cultists.
Well, I mean, but he's also got the Beasts of Nurgle in there again. Could be going forwards with that. Could be holding back with that. They're a very flexible pick and cheap as well. So there's not really an opportunity loss in using them in any particular way.
Yeah, he's also bringing that Poxbringer in there to bring with the Fleshy Abundance. So he's looking to regain some wounds every single psychic phase. So he's just looking for sustainability and getting up there. And with those 2 groups of 20, he's probably going straight for objectives.
So something that I think I'm going to have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that with the way that the demon psychic powers are worded, and the way that the aura ability on Demon Prince and Poxbringers are worded, is that they affect God keyword and demon keyword, but they don't require the demon keyword to be the faction keyword.
That's correct.
So that they can heal the demon engines.
Correct.
That's correct.
So that's a big important point. Yeah, I don't think that the psychic power specifies infantry only, if it or similar.
No, for that Poxbringer, it is specifically. I'll take another look at it. Yeah, it's just Nurgle Demon. So I run Word Bearers, and one of the lists that I've been really running lately is the demon engines with my demons. So now all of my demons that give off the auras are also benefiting, my demon engines as well.
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about for doubles matches as well. Going, okay, can I coordinate my mark with if my allies bringing demons? I think about can we do synergies there and what type of effects can happen. But yeah, this list it's got some really good presence. The other thing I'll say is, and this is going to come up a lot because a lot of these lists, spoiler alert, contain squads of Nurglings.
Yes, that's something
Nurglings.
that Cold-Tyker and I were talking about earlier, is how abundant these Nurglings are going to be.
I ran the numbers for Nurglings. You look at their stat block and you think, okay, and then but it's the number of gates you have to kill a Nurgling is absurd. Like a bolt gun shot being fired by a standard Space Marine has just under a quarter a chance of taking off 1 wound.
Yeah,
and it's 4 wounds per base, 3 bases per squad. So you need somewhere in the region of 80 bolt gun shots to kill a squad of a unit of Nurglings, which costs 54 points, and can be set up on objectives in the midfield.
Yeah, I mean, last time that I played a Death Guard army with Nurglings, I got stuck in the midfield trying to run my engines up the field because I just could not take them out.
Yeah,
they're very resilient.
Very resilient and absurdly cheap, and they've got obsec, so they can just sit there and go. Unless you're dealing with and most troops just don't throw out enough dice to take out a squad of Nurglings.
Yeah, the one way I found that was effective to kill Nurglings was to death hex them and then charge in a Lord Discord, which I mean, that's 300 points of models
it's a sledgehammer to crack a nut.
Reliably kill 50 points of models.
Just wanted to bring that up. Not specifically because of this list, but I mean the Nurglings are present to this list. There are a lot more in other lists, but this is the first list we're going through, and it's already pointed out. Nurgle demons are good.
Definitely.
Or at least the Nurglings are a strong segment. I think this is a decent list. I'd like to see it in play, particularly, like you say, for how those 2 big Plague Marine squads are going. Might be better with, like you kind of implied, 1 10-man, 1 20-man, and then maybe a transport. That's maybe where I'd be thinking. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's 700 points of Plague Marines. That's not a small amount of threat.
And seeing as looks like his first season, I don't think he's aware of the complications that are going to come with moving.
Oh, he's going to have
that
a time.
many Space Marines within this area. All right, we're going to take a look at Arrovor. Also, if we pronounce any of your names wrong while we're going through this list, I apologize.
Just yell at him in the comments.
Yes. So Arrovor, he played Arrovor, played season 5. He went 4-1 in Group 13. So this list, he's also running the Death Guard, but he's running pure Death Guard without the demons.
Pure Death Guard, but it's no, it's a patrol and an outrider.
Yeah, his outrider, he is running with,
and he's going
mass
chaos spawn.
I have never seen a list like that.
This list, I'm gonna say this list looks really good. Like I would not want to deny my Phytic Blight Haulers, and it's got 15 chaos spawn with the feel no pain. Like
the contaminated monstrosity pre-game stratagem going. I spend a CP. This unit of stuff that doesn't normally get disgustingly resilient is now disgustingly resilient. And on something like a chaos spawn, which is 4 wounds, toughness 5, that just makes it suddenly boom. You need to throw this much more firepower at this.
And the other big part of it, he's got the Chaos Lord with Wormspitter. And Wormspitter is that relic bolt pistol that when you hit a target, every further attack against that unit counts as being a plague weapon. So basically, and he's got the Arch Contaminator Warlord trait. So everything within 6 inches that's a plague weapon, or it might be 7, not sure. But everything within a certain aura that's a plague weapon rerolls all failed wound rolls, not just ones. So he's going to shoot a target with the bolt pistol. And then all of my Phytic Blight Haulers, multi-melters, and missile launchers are going to become plague weapons. And then in combat, the Chaos Spawn are going to be hitting them with the plague weapon mutations.
Yeah, that's scary. Like the Blight Haulers are like Blight Hauler. They benefited hugely from the multi-melter changes that happened kind of with the Space Marine book. They're going up to 2 shots, and the way that the damage expression changed, huge buff on the Blight Haulers, because they still remained Hellbrew price, but they've got Demon Engine resilience.
Yeah, they're like it blows my mind because they're just so much better than a Hellbrew, except they're cheaper.
It's vexing, but I'm sure that will solve that. But yeah, look at this. We've got the double things. We've got the 2 scoops of Chaos Spawn. Too many Mephitic Blight Haulers. Part of me wonders if he might have been able to squeeze in this into one detachment and save himself a bunch of CP, because he's spending a lot of CP on buffing those Chaos Spawn, and whether he could have dropped one of the Blight Haulers or the Foul Blight Spawn or something along those lines, so that he could bring another squad of Poxwalkers and then all in one battalion.
So I think that the reason why he set it this way is because he has 3 HQ choices, which he couldn't do unless he brought a battalion. Yeah. And if he brought a battalion, he would be limited to 3 fast attack. And it looks like the Blight Haulers and the Chaos Spawn are both in the fast attack.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I misread the Blight Haulers as heavy support because I'm terrible. He's gone all in on this fast attack. He's not bringing very many troops, so this list is very clearly either wanting to just mob people with Chaos Spawn in order to take objectives, or kill everything on the table and have a squad of Poxwalkers sat on the objective. And
I mean, that's what my Iron Warriors do. They kill everything, and then my little 5-man Chaos Space Marine squads stroll into the now cleared off objectives.
But like, OBSEC matters is the point I'm bringing it. It matters quite a lot, and he doesn't have very much of it here, but he's got a lot of just pure killing potential. Now, a lot of that killing potential are on the multi-melters. So 2-shot multi-melters, good, but they're not good at clearing hordes. You're unlikely to see hordes in TTS, but there's factions out there who are pretty good at minimizing or reduced. I'm thinking I play Harlequins a fair bit, and those invulnerable saves are a real pain when it comes to these kind of high damage single shot. I think the variance on that is so huge, particularly when someone can command reroll it or what have you.
That is something you gotta keep in mind. You're like, when you're planning your shots and you're like, okay, well, this Harlequin transport with a command point reroll has a 75% chance of just passing that 4-up invul save. And so it's like, okay, so I gotta dedicate a little bit more firepower to it.
It's not a 6-wound transport, it's a 10-wound transport. It's that kind of thinking that you have to do, and you want to, in that case, be kind of erring on the side of mass rate of fire, weight of fire, because like there you kind of eliminate that variance. You get closer to that bell curve distribution of shots getting through. You could rely on law of averages if you're shooting 16 shots at a thing rather than 2. But that comes down to list building. You can't change that in play much. So it'd be interesting to see how this fares against someone that brings a lot of small squads of threat, or like a few kind of really. I'm thinking like if somebody, heaven forbid, worked out how to run like mass Cormicants, mass Termagants in Tabletop Sim without falling over from brain hemorrhage. Like this list would have some real difficulty dealing with just that sheer number of bodies on the table.
So something that really stands out that could be a little bit of a hidden gem is him bringing this Noxious Blightbringer and the Tallyman. So the Noxious Blightbringer we were talking about earlier, what he has is within a 7-inch aura. Whenever you're advancing, you roll 2 dice, discarding the lowest dice. You're moving the furthest one. So his goal is to get these things across the board as fast as he can.
Yeah, that's a big one for the Spawn in particular, because you're not giving up. Like the Blight Haulers, you've got a lot of good shooting there that you're giving up if you advance. But with the Spawn, you don't have an advance and charge technique anyway, so you just make it a good advance, and then you're there for turn 2, or there for receiving, screening out a charge that would otherwise be hitting your demon engines.
Yeah, and then that Tallyman, he has that ability to get your command points back as well whenever you go to spend the stratagem.
So that which is going to be crucial in this list, which I think ends up with 3 CP to spend.
Just thinking about it, like I don't know if really any command point intensive stratagems that you would want to use with this list. So I think that's probably less of a concern than you might think just on first glance.
You always want to have them in the back pocket for those rerolls on invulnerable saves, those rerolls on armor saves, rerolls on wound rolls, particularly when you've got these kind of high damage spike weaponry.
Well, but that's kind of the beauty of this list, is that he doesn't really need the command point rerolls on the reroll wounds, because hit it with the worm spitter, and then everything becomes a plague weapon, and everything becomes rerolling.
That's a fair point. But that involves. I mean, I'm imagining with the sheer number of Blight Haulers he's got in this list, he's going to have them spread across the battlefield. It's not going to be sitting in a bubble around the one Chaos Lord.
Well, it might, because one thing that we didn't really mention at the beginning, he does have the Ironclad Furnace, of course, to give all the Malefic Blight Haulers a 4-up invul save. So, and that is on the Demon Prince wings. So,
that's. I feel like that guy's going to be troubleshooting. He's going to be moving from site to site.
Let's move on to Bdac. Bdac is running the Iron Warriors and Nurgle Demons. This is kind of what our forte is a little bit here.
Yep.
This is his first tournament from what I can see with the Alpha League.
So looking down, I'm seeing a lot of. He's got bringing the Feculent Narwhal, which is an interesting choice. Slam that down. It's Nurglings and Furies and a Poxbringer. I feel like that Poxbringer, whilst it's there and it's got its thing, it's mostly there because it's a cheap HQ to get that detachment filled.
Yeah, I think that's all that is just getting enough in there to get his Nurgling swarm in the middle of the board.
Yeah, because once he's got that, he can freely have these obliterators that are coming in. Now, these are Nurgle obliterators, so they're less. It's not the burst damage of a Slaanesh obliterator. You're not slamming that down and doing 400 points of damage in that one turn, but they are more likely to survive the counter blow.
I think with 2 units of obliterators, his plan is going to be to deploy 1 on the table next to the Feculent Narwhal, and then 1 in Deep Strike Reserve to go wherever he wants. Because I know the Feculent Narwhal, it pairs really good with the obliterators because they have the demon keyword.
Yeah.
So, and I'd have to re-look up what exactly it does, but I know that you'd have to hit those obliterators with at least like AP3 to even make a dent in their armor next to the Feculent Narwhal, because it like adds 2 instead of 1 for cover. So your obliterators essentially would have like a 0+ save.
Yeah.
In theory, I also believe it allows them to advance and shoot without penalty. Although I might be making that up.
Well, they're used. So the obliterated weapons are assault in any case. So it's like -1 to hit is -1 to hit. It's nothing to be sneezed at, but it's still worth doing in some situations. But removing that penalty is a thing. It's a nice thing.
Like I honestly love deploying my obliterators on the table. Like I almost never deep strike them. Like I always have them on the table behind like 20 or 30 cultists.
That's
and the other thing to bring in, he's got 2 squads of cultists in this list.
Yeah.
So he does have that option for the meat. Is it called meat shield? It's the stratagem that goes. No,
meat shields or cannon fodder is the strategy.
Cannon fodder.
Cannon fodder. Yes.
Yeah.
Like this list looks to me like it's wants to do a lot of deep strike stuff, because I appreciate what you're saying, that you might not be deep striking both these obliterator squads, but you've got 1 obliterator squad at least in deep strike. You've probably got the Raptors in deep strike.
Yeah, they look like nice little deploy scrambler, secondary action dudes.
So it's a lot of this is going for. You've got the Furies as well, which might be coming in. If it survives turn 1, this list will absolutely break someone in half. It's got those Havocs as well. It's got 3 Rhinos to keep the infantry alive. Their last cannon Havocs, which are just absurdly cheap for the damage they do these days. They're paying infantry costs for having vehicle, move and fire. They're in a really good place dealing with hard vehicle targets. So I think this list has a lot of counterpunch potential, but it's like you're saying, you probably shouldn't start with them all off the table. If he does start with all off the table, that's somewhere in the region of half of his list to deep strike. That's getting very close to that point. And if your opponent is able to screen you out, and so you can't drop in tactically relevant places, or if he is able to just do enough damage to what you've got on the board turn 1, when you're playing against you've got much for your points there. Then that can really be a deciding factor.
It's also worth noting that he doesn't have any deep striking HQs to come with those obliterators, so he might be starting them all on the board. But he's got the Demon Prince, which are re-rolling. You've got the Master of Possession that he's bringing. What does the Master of Possession have with him? He's got the Demon's Edge,
Infernal Power, and Mutated Invigoration. Which honestly, I think the Mutated Invigoration is not that great for Iron Warriors, because we've got the stratagem.
Yeah.
He's 9 CP, so he's not running into the 3 CP
I'm
issue.
feeling like that could have been a Cursed Earth, could have been a better choice, if only to buff the Demon Prince and the Obliterators.
Although maybe I can see maybe why he would bring it, just because he is bringing the 2 units of Obliterators. So you use the stratagem on one, and then you use Mutated Invigoration on the other.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That does make them both. Makes them both threats. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting set of choices. Also, Insidium on the Demon Prince. Not sure it's my favorite choice. It gives you the point of strength boost. It gives you the extra attack, extra wound. Sorry, point of strength, point of toughness. It's still a decent buff, but you lose the real synergetic effects of being able to stick the demon keyword on something that isn't a demon.
Right.
Which I think is a really, particularly if you're running a Master of Possession, that could be a really, really powerful tool. Stick it on Terminator Lord, stick it on, you can really play around with some of the more tricky things.
But with this list, it's got a lot less meat shields, so I can definitely see an argument that the Insidium on the MOP would be a lot more relevant. So.
I'm just thinking, if he had brought Cursed Earth, he'd be sitting there going, okay, now, not only am I improving the invulnerable save on my Demon Prince, who's going to be a target, I'm not only improving my invulnerable saves on my Obliterators, if they keep bringing multi-melters or anything along those lines. I'm also sitting here with a 4+ invulnerable save on myself in case somebody decides to charge in and remove the force multiplier. Actually kind of directly comparable in this list. The Master of Possession and the Perfect Marmor, they're costing the same number of points to this list to bring one or the other. One is always on, one is needing to pass a psychic test, one is immobile, one can move with your units if you need to advance at the table or get a better sight line. They're both largely defensive tools. It's interesting to see how I'd like to see this list in play. I'm not sure why he needs all 3 rhinos.
Well, it looks like he's got 2 rhinos for the 2 cultist squads, and then the 3rd rhino would have the Chaos Space Marines and the Havocs.
But if he's got the cultists in the rhino, he can't cannon fodder. Because the cultists need to be on the table for that.
Yeah.
So the question becomes then, is he deploying the cultists next to the rhino? Is he just bringing the rhino to be something that he can just charge into a unit to stop it from moving, to hold it in place? Like, I've got questions.
I definitely think he's going to go for engage on all fronts and like everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like this is engage on all fronts. This is, like you say, maybe deploy scramblers with the Raptors and the Furies, or something along those lines. An action secondary, whatever kill secondary your opponent's giving up. Most lists will give it 1, or failing that, you've got options in terms of keeping stuff alive, like your expensive models in this list, the Demon Prince and Obliterators, which are, as you pointed out, not easy targets. So you could say, I'm going to keep these 2 Obliterators alive and my Demon Prince. You want to kill them anyway, but good luck. So there's definitely options here, but I'd be worried about first turn board presence. But again, it's an interesting way of playing counterplay. It very much depends on what your opponent's bringing in, how they're, not just what they're bringing, but how they're deploying it and how they're moving it in their first turn.
All right, our next guy, we got Blaze XD7. He is running Undivided Demons. I know one of the big talks right now is Demons is a big thing in 9th edition. They've been taking a lot of top positions in the tournament, so I'm interested to see how these Demon lists are going to go.
So I had a look at this list, and this being the first kind of Undivided Demons list we've come across. I wanted to talk about the Demon Allegiance abilities and how they worked, because the Demon Allegiance abilities are pretty good, but they're not fantastic, and they really narrow your unit type choices a lot to get it. So we've seen some like Nurgle ones, and the benefits you get from them are just on characters. I
think they're an aura on characters.
Yeah, they give characters an aura. So if you are bringing a detachment of demons because you want Nurglings, and you don't really care about the aura that gives them wound rerolls, then why bring a Nurgle character when you could bring a Lord of Change or a Keeper of Secrets?
Yeah, and those are just really, really good.
Yeah, and those are just solid models that don't need the aura. Like, I'd argue that the best Allegiance ability is arguably Slaanesh, because that aura is Advance and Charge, which is just a really strong ability to be able to throw on anything. And we do have some Slaanesh demon detachments later on in the show, but I just wanted to bring it up here because this is a very deliberate choice to not take those benefits that you don't need to pay points for, because it makes list building better. You're going for unit variety over power.
And in the list, first thing on there is Be'lakor, and you can't bring him in a pure like god detachment because he doesn't have the proper keyword. So if you want to bring Be'lakor, you can't have that detachment be a pure god. You have to bring it as Undivided.
Yeah. But it's a chicken and egg one here. I don't know. I think this might have been a list that was designed and then Be'lakor was added, rather than a list that was built around Be'lakor. Exalted Lord of Change, Exalted Bloodthirster. We're seeing those Psychic Awakening traits coming in with really good power boosts. Really nice to be able to just choose a cool thing to happen with your greater demons. Bloodletters and Plague Bearers.
He's got the Bloodletter bombs, with the banner.
Yeah, 40 coming in right there.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly thinking that, because it used to be in 8th edition, it was you either brought 20 Bloodletters or you brought 30 Bloodletters because of the way the power level works, and the Demon Deep Strike stratagem costs command points based on the power level. Yeah. And so if you brought 20 Bloodletters, they're 8 power level, they only cost 1 command point to Deep Strike. But if you bring 21 Bloodletters, they go up to 12 power level, they cost 2 command points to Deep Strike. And so the argument was like, if you bring a couple extra Bloodletters over the base, because if you bring 20 or more, they get that bonus to hit, and they hit on 2s, right?
Yeah.
And so the argument was always like, bring a couple extra, they'll die during Overwatch, and you still get the hit on 2s, and you just pay extra command points for it. Now with Overwatch being a stratagem, I think it's a lot safer just to bring 20.
Yeah, particularly like you say, if you're going to drop them in, use the stratagem to deep strike them. They've got the banner for that charge reroll, so they're going to succeed on their charge roughly half the time.
No. I think the banners roll 3d6, take the 2 highest, or add them all together. Or it's like it's really good. It's hard to fail a charge with Banner of Blood.
Yeah, they're a big threat, and they're not like look at other lists. We've been saying, okay, this unit's a big threat, and these are a threat, but they're significantly cheaper than some of the other scary things we've been seeing, like the Blight Hauler units for 360 points per unit. Whereas these are 175 points for a mob of 20 Bloodletters.
And just for clarity on that Banner of Blood, it's once per battle, 3d6 instead of 2d6.
Okay, right. I thought it was like the Icon of Khorne, which was charge rerolls.
Right.
Oh, and because it's a base banner, it adds 1 to the charge, so you have to make an 8-inch charge on 3d6.
Yeah,
so
which is trivial. Yeah, we've got Flamers of Zeech here in the elites for.
Yeah, good
Give
choice.
you a little bit of shooting potential along with the Skull Cannon and the Soul Grinders.
Yeah,
I
actually really like the Skull Cannon. It just because it's cheap and it's a backfield objective holder that you normal deep strike threats don't work against. Like when I first started playing Chaos, I was running my own warband called Dragon Warriors, but I would like summon in demons, and I loved having enough points to summon in a Skull Cannon, and it would just sit on my backfield objective, and it wasn't infantry, so like all the snipers, the Raven Guard snipers that were running around didn't get bonuses but like it's not something that is susceptible to your normal backfield pressure unit.
The other thing I'll say is like the classic backfield pressure unit is something like a unit of Assault Marines or a unit of Raptors or something deep striking in that's a melee threat, right? And a Skull Cannon, it's primarily a ranged weapon, but it can hold its own, especially against light to medium infantry.
Oh yeah,
because we're looking at a heavy D6, strength 8, -2, D3 damage.
Yeah. So it's got a decent range as well. So it can happily sit on its own objective, hit something midfield. It's contributing, it's paying for itself, and if someone decides to get rid of it, it's not an easy remove.
Yeah, they need to dedicate anti-tank firepower, long-range anti-tank firepower to get rid of it, and you got 2 Soul Grinders and some Greater Demons running at you. It's like,
are you throwing the last cannon at the Skull Cannon or the Exalted Bloodthirst, or the Exalted Lord of Change? You got
this is a list of what do I take out first.
Yeah, like not everybody's bringing 12 last cannons in a 2,000 point game. Not everybody can delete 2 of these things in the first turn.
Yeah, I see him doing well as long as he can play these lists right.
Yeah,
there's a lot of what ifs in this.
Yeah, this needs some execution. I can foresee if he's up against something like Alpha Legion, if he's up against something that has like deep strike denial bubbles, like you raised with the fact that you can't declare the charge if you're not within 12. That can really mess up when he's wanting to bring those Bloodletters in. I know Necrons have one now. I don't know if what other factions have, but there's enough of it out there that I feel it's worth mentioning, that there are abilities to say you can't deep strike within 12 of this.
And like going back to like 8th edition kind of like tournament meta, the Bloodletter bomb basically disappeared once the infiltrators got released.
Yeah,
like just because everybody started bringing at least 1 or 2 units of those, and those are the hard counter to the Bloodletter bomb. So
yeah,
but now people have been more shifting towards assault intercessors and just regular intercessors, not so much as many infiltrators as before. So I think maybe it can make a comeback.
I can see deep strike being like melee deep strike becoming a thing again, particularly like you say when you've got these longer charges that can be made significantly easier. Yeah, I can see this list doing well. The other thing I'll say is these Bloodletter bombs, they've got OBSEC. You've got 20 models with OBSEC charging onto a unit on a midfield objective, even if that unit is 20 Plague Marines. That's going to put a dent in something.
Right. Our next list, we have Dirac, Thousand Suns. This is your
I will bow to your superior experience on this one, I think.
All right. What stands out to you for this list?
The Rubric Marines with a mix of bolt guns and warp flamers. Like, that's something I've never actually done myself. Like, just looking at it, I don't know. I've always been like one or the other. Like either I bring a big unit of Rubric Marines and they all have bolt guns and they all like stand still and fire twice, or I take a unit with all warp flamers and they hop out of a rhino and advance in warp time and just flame everything. So I'd be interested to see how that plays out, especially because the biggest issue is that warp flamers only have the 8-inch range, and when you're first looking at the profile, you're like, okay, strength 4, AP 2, you know, this is good charge denial. Like, no one's going to want to charge it, but a smart opponent would position his models in a way that maybe he'd only get hit by 1 or 2 warp flamers, like,
or just
yeah,
for a high roll on the 9-inch charge.
None of the warp flamers at all. The 8-inch range is what kind of kills it, and so that's a little bit iffy to me. I really like the triple Hellbrutes with multi-melts and fists. And in kind of my version 3 of my Thousand Suns list, I do take 3 Hellbrutes with multi-meltas and fists into Cult of Duplicity, just because they're pretty good for what they do. And Cult of Duplicity, you can teleport them around. And the beauty is that you can teleport them 9 inches away. You're in multi-melter range.
Yeah, you're getting that D6 plus 2.
Yeah. And I do, and there's an argument going on kind of right now of whether or not you take a Hellbrute or you take a Demon Engine, and like a Mauler Fiend or a Defiler. And Defilers are objectively better, you know, they're more points, but when you're teleporting them around, Hellbrutes are a lot smaller, and you can fit them a lot easier. Where
that footprint really makes a difference when you're trying to do tricky movement stuff. Yeah,
especially again with 9th edition terrain density, you know, like bringing back to what you said.
Yeah.
And then the other argument was to bring a Mauler Fiend, and the problem with bringing that, the problem with that tactic in Thousand Suns is you teleport a Mauler Fiend 9 inches away. Thousand Suns have no way of making the charge easier, so you just teleported your melee only Demon Engine 9 inches away, and you got to rely on rolling that hard 9.
It's like a 35% chance of succeeding on that charge.
Yeah,
like that. That's not a high percentage play. It's not something you want to risk.
In Thousand Suns, you can bring the Gaze of Fate to give you a reroll 1 of your charge dice, and you do have a command point reroll. But I'd rather just have a Hellbrute and shoot twice with the multi-melta, and then like YOLO the hard 9.
Yeah, if you don't succeed on the charge of the Hellbrute, then your opponent is still in a tricky place, right? They've still got that Hellbrute right there, so they either charge it and get punched by a Hellbrute.
Yeah.
And you leave it there, and then you can just move up and go, okay, I'm going to go for a 3-inch charge next turn, 2-inch charge.
I just noticed the Rubric Marines bring an Icon of Flame. I honestly think that's a waste of 5 points. Like, it's you got to rely on
if you've got 15 points left in your list, that might be worthwhile. But like the other thing I'd say is, if you've got 15 points left in your list, give one of the Hellbrutes a heavy flamer. It'll do more for you than that 1 in 6 chance of a mortal wound in your when you're within 12 inches.
Or flame pistols on the aspiring sorcerers. Like, yeah, I
there's a bit of rule of cool happening in this list, I feel. So the other thing is, and I want your opinion, what are the Zangor Enlightened bringing to this table?
So it's kind of a combo. You got the Zangor Shaman with the Dark Matter Crystal, and Dark Matter Crystal is a once per game teleport. It's really great. I love it. I always bring it. The Thousand Suns are kind of that weird place where there's only 2 good relics, like 3 good relics depending on your cult. So you either see Dark Matter Crystal or Helm of the Third Eye as your relics. So he's got the Zangor Shaman with the teleport.
Does he pay for extra relics on this one? No, he is not.
And what the Zangor Shaman does is he allows any Zangor unit within 6 inches to add 1 to the hit rolls. And Zangor Enlightened, whenever they roll a modified 6 up to hit, they automatically wound. So if you've got the Zangor Shaman floating around, they automatically wound on a 5 up. So it looks like he is bringing all spears, which are pretty good at killing Primaris. They are going to be Strength 4, AP -1, flat damage 2.
So yeah, the flat damage 2 is huge right now.
Yeah. Well, caveat, they're flat damage 2 on the charge, I believe. I think they're only 1 damage if they don't charge.
Okay.
So they're kind of an offensive unit. But
Well,
yeah, they're going to be...
They're on a disc, so that's what, 14-inch movement?
Yeah, if 12, 14, like, they got movement.
So then they are much more likely to be charging.
Oh yeah,
because
definitely.
they get to determine the engagement.
Yeah, and like I said, they're going to be auto wounding on 5-ups with a Zangor Shaman around and killing Primaris. On if they fail the 4-up armor save.
Yeah,
so that's pretty good. And the other thing is, if you take the Zangor Shaman, he's a good option for psychic action secondaries. Like,
yes,
because the big problem with Thousand Suns and psychic action secondaries is that they all suck because you have to devote. Yeah, you have to devote the character's entire psychic phase to doing the psychic action, and so you don't want it on one of your HQ sorcerers because they can all cast 2 powers, and you pretty much need those 2 powers.
Yeah,
but the Zangor Shaman can only cast 1 power, so it's kind of like you're not losing anything. And the fact that he's bringing...
And it's an 85-point character in the elite slot.
Yeah. And what makes me suspect he's going to take psychic actions as secondaries is he's bringing Doombolt on the Zangor Shaman. And Doombolt is kind of a terrible power. It's cast on a 9 on 2d6. Yeah, and it deals D3 mortal wounds. It's targetable. It deals D3 mortal wounds, and it messes with your opponent's movement, which would be really good if it wasn't for the fact you cast on a 9.
Yeah, I have enough issue with Prescient. I like the Hellbrutes. Something that one of my friends, not competitive player, but he does play Thousand Suns, has been talking about trying to increase his anti-tank capacity. And I think it'll feel like this type of Hellbrute loadout really gives you a lot of hard-hitting firepower that can also deal with things once the Rhino's blown up, once the Predator's blown up. It's a flexible threat that can really mess with hard targets.
The bad thing, of course, they evaporate to Eradicators. Oh. Like every time my opponent shot at a Hellbrute with the Eradicator squad, they just die. But yeah, it's a monster without an impulse save. Like that's gonna happen. But the fact that you can teleport them wherever you want with the Cult of Duplicity, like that's
start
really
them
good.
Out of line of sight. You can just slam them up, bam, they're where I want them to be. So this has got some tricks to it, but it's not going to be an easy list to pilot. The other thing is, like, he hasn't taken one big Rubric squad, so he's not doing unlikely to be doing like the forward deployment shenanigans that you can do with
Risen Rubric.
Yeah, so he's unlikely to be doing that, because if he was doing that, then that would be a 20-man Rubric squad with all bolters.
Yeah, and you would also want to take the Cult of Duplicity Warlord trait, which he is now. He's taking Aether Stride, which is a reroll charges, and like you can fall back and charge on the Demon, which is good, especially on a Demon Prince with wings. But if you're gonna do the Risen Rubric, you really need the Cult of Duplicity redeployment Warlord trait, just because if you lose the first turn roll off, that's like a 400-point Rubric Marine squad that's just gonna die.
Next list, we have DizBiotch. He's going to be running the World Eaters list.
Okay, so World Eaters aren't in a fantastic place right now, so I'm interested to see what tools he's bringing.
I mean, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of Khorne Berserkers, two groups of 5, two
squads of 5, 2 squads of 10, and a squad of 9. Which I think is key, considering that he's got bringing some transports and support characters.
So he's definitely going to be putting one of those support characters in. He's going to think
I reckon it's going to be the Exalted Champion with the 9-man squad.
Yeah, because the Dark Apostle is going to have to come with his Disciples, Demon Prince with wings. I mean, he's fine. There's no point in him putting in there.
Yeah, and you can't do anything with the Dark Apostle if he's in the transport.
Right.
So
has to be on the table. He's got the Mutilators in there as well.
And the Dark Apostle's got the defensive prayer, so he obviously wants to deploy that, and then round 1 get the defense prayer off, before the opponent shoots.
But he's not doing, from the looks of this, he isn't doing the advanced deployment pre-game move. Stratagem. If he was doing that, bring a 20-man squad of Berserkers. He's got 3 Defilers, Wheal with Scourge and Autocannon, so those are big crab threats. doing big crab things.
I'm a big Defiler fan. I've always been preaching the Defilers, so seeing a list of 3 in there kind of tickles my fancy a little bit.
Well, if something's worth bringing, it's worth bringing 3 of it.
Yes, because you're not going to take out all 3 in the first round. They're
No,
that's the thing. You're probably not going to take all 3 of them out in the second turn either.
But
And if you do, you got the 40 berserkers or whatever.
Yeah,
right.
Like, because having played like one of in the small group of people I play very frequently, one of them does World Eaters, and the thing is, World Eaters, you need to knock out the transports turn 1, otherwise you are dying to berserkers rolling too many goddamn dice.
Oh, yeah.
It's something
especially
like,
now that they have the AP1 chainswords, it's like
they've got AP1 chainswords, they've got strength 5 base, and in World Eaters it's something like 9 attacks on the charge per model.
Something like that, yeah. Sitting here like adding all the bonuses in my head. I'm like,
So yeah, you get charged by a squad of 5 guys, and they wipe out your 10-man squad.
Yeah, I mean, I brought in berserkers in my list. That's sort of that I started adding to both my word bearers and my Iron Warriors list, and they are just savage.
They need some help getting to where they need to go, which is where the transports come in, and where the Defilers come in to draw fire away from the transports. I mean, if somebody isn't savvy to the fact that, oh no, I need to be pointing my last cannon to my multi-alters at the rhinos, not the giant crabs.
When I'm bringing my Iron Warriors to tournaments, like ironically, I love my Thousand Suns, but my Iron Warriors are more consistent. Like
you're not rolling psychic tests for half the game.
Yeah. If I was being objective, I would bring the Iron Warriors every time. But one thing I do with my Iron Warriors is I have the Demon Engine spam, and then I have like 1 or 2 rhinos chosen, or I bring Rubric Marines with Warflamers, or I bring Plague Marines or Horn Berserkers, and the rhinos. The rhino never seems to get shot at, just because I have all the other demon engines just going forward.
A venom crawler is scarier than a rhino because they don't see what's inside the rhino.
Yeah,
it's a psychological thing,
and it's so easy to forget what they're carrying.
It's so easy to go, oh wait, you've got that many Thunderhammers in there. Oh shit!
But we got power fists on all of them too.
Yeah, there's the power fist on the Berserker champions. Again, this is something that my World Eaters buddy, like, I wouldn't be surprised if this was his list. Like it's doing a lot of the things that he likes to bring. The power fists are really good because that means that he doesn't need, like, that's anti-tank, because those are strength 10 hits in this list.
My buddy who runs Creations of Bile, he was running Corn Berserkers and he didn't have power fists on the champions for the longest time, and finally, because he was like, oh, they hit on 4s, and finally I convinced him to take power fists on the champions, and like,
I guess on 4s,
ever since then he's been
everything.
winning like 60% of his games.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, you're hitting on 2s, but you're wounding on 3s against Titans. Like, you can one-round Knights with a squad of Berserkers, and because you're making, like, okay, I'm making 9 attacks, doing D3 damage, doing 2 damage now, then 9 attacks doing 2 damage, plus all this other stuff, plus Death of the False Emperor, plus whatever else. It all kind of just stacks up. Death of the False Emperor, if you've got a way of giving a post hit, which is not impossible. So the big question mark I have about this list is, it's got nothing to hold a backfield objective.
I thought you were going to say the mutilators.
Yeah, it's got mutilators.
It's got those mutilators, I guess, if you want to just have them hanging out. But what I'm thinking, this list is really going to depend what the mission is. Because if there are like 2 objectives in my deployment zone and 2 objectives in my opponent's deployment zone, then is he going to sit there with Defilers sat on his own objectives and not really interacting with the board? Is he going to like have empty rhinos sat on them and foot slog marines across the table? Is he going to like set up like this? I feel this list is very offensive, but it might not score well on primaries if there are safe objectives, if that makes any sense. Like, the whole list wants to be on the offensive.
Yeah, he's got one thing that can hold a home field objective. So like you said, if there's 2 home field objectives, then
you've seen some of these deployment zone maps where you go, okay, 2 in my deployment zone, 2 in your deployment zone, 1 in the middle, or something along those lines. You get there's a fair few of those. So it's thinking about, okay, like what you pointed out with the skull cannon. If you'd left 90 points free in this list, you could be summoning all of those in.
I'm just so confused about bringing those mutilators.
I mean, I've seen this a lot, and I've seen a bit of analysis online. They're really good for dropping in to do actions.
I didn't think about doing them in an act because if you're failing your charge, because you need to get them into the charge, if you fail a charge, you're just going to have them wandering through the empty abyss for a while. But I never thought about the secondary.
So points per wound, they're cheaper than Marines.
Yeah, because they're 3 wounds and like 30-something points a model, or
yeah. And
they have a Terminator save,
and they've got Terminator saves. So if you don't care about them actually doing things, you can just drop them in and do, oh, okay, I'm deploying Scramblers. And then either your opponent has to kill 9 wounds of Terminators, or they give you a bunch of victory points. And those 9 wounds of Terminators aren't shooting things, aren't chasing things down. So they're a really low priority. It's the psychology of targeting. It's a thing that's out there, and this isn't an idea I've come up with. This is something I've seen in analysis. It's an interesting thought to looking how secondary choice is influencing list building. Because the other thing is, this list is, it's giving up bring them down, but it's not giving out for much else.
This next list is one that I have to be honest, I had to look up because I didn't know who half these people were.
It's the one with all of the Forge World Demons. I think this guy's in it for the laughs, to be perfectly honest.
I remember we were talking about this when we're just like, what is this list?
Because not only are they bringing the 3 big dumb monsters, he's gone for the random roll on the Exalted table, where you've got some really good things and some basically duds. He was bothered going for the aura, bothered getting the locus for the Keeper of Secrets, the Keeper of Secrets only. There's a lot of weird choices about this list. I'd be very interested to see if this list can win a game. I genuinely don't think it's got enough board presence to ever score primaries.
Yeah, I'm going to root for him. I like another.
It's going to be absolutely hilarious. But it's going to be absolutely hilarious in the ways that, I watched an Age of Sigmar battle report recently where somebody brought the 1,000 point giant Forge World Cohort dragon to a 2,000 point game. Half his list was this one model, which was literally about yay big. It's a beautiful, enormous chunk of resin. But it's just this is you're just bringing this for the spectacle at this point. It's going to be fun. It's going to be good storytelling, and it's going to be great. It's going to be a really enjoyable set of matches. But I don't think this guy is going to be scoring highly. And if he is winning matches, it's going to be by the skin of his teeth, because it's going to be too easy for somebody to just go, "Yeah, I've just got Nurglings on 4 objectives."
Maybe he's going to prove us wrong. Maybe he'll.
Yeah, maybe. He doesn't need to. He's got good movement. He's got good close combat capability, and he's got good close combat capability on flying models. So it's not like he's going to end up in a list to get against a couple of aircraft and be completely unable to interact with it. And he's got the psychic damage output there from everything apart from the Lord of War. The Khorne thing has offensive psychic ability. I'm just worried. I feel like one of those Lords of War would have been a good call, supporting a bunch of a mixed demon list like we saw earlier. In this, where he's bringing all 3, I don't see the strategy.
I'm wondering if this is more of I want to see how well each of these individually do, so I know what I want to buy later.
Yeah, this might be I want to throw this up against a lot of different lists and a lot of different opponents. But part of me feels like if you've got one of these big models that needs an element of support, you need to be playing it in a list that gets at least some of that support. Because especially with all the psychic buffs that demons can do, and what we were talking about with synergetic interfaction stuff.
Yeah. So,
yeah,
GenWilhelm, I'd like to hear what
please put what on earth you were thinking in the comments below. I want to be inside your head.
Yes, I am. This is a list that's fascinating, and it's just I want to. I'm curious. I'm very curious.
Real quick question: which list are y'all looking at?
General Wilhelm.
General
Cool.
Wilhelm's list, which is bizarre.
I mean, unless it goes in sync with like the Lord of Skulls type.
Yeah,
style
but
of
I think
big
part of the
guns,
Lord of
there's no synergy.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like the Lord of Skulls list works because you've got enough points left for support, and the support is there. Like you can have the triple Lord of Skulls, and the Master of Possession, and the Lord of Scorn, and all this the stuff that just nudges. Take your big units, and then you stick force multipliers on those big units. Whereas you've got your 3 big models here, and Keeper of Secrets, which doesn't do buffing much. Like it's like a Keeper of Secrets is a big melee beatstick, as are all 3 of the Lords of War. Like, what do you do about home field objective? What do you do about a midfield objective? What do you do about a backline? How do you prevent someone from just deep striking obliterators behind you? Or anything? What do you do about transports? What do you do about planes? There's so many questions that this list doesn't answer.
I mean, keeping the Zinch guy back with his 48-inch range and just kind of picking off people from that. And so we have Gaze of Fate and Infernal Gateway. Is that?
I think Infernal Gateway, is a teleporting.
No, so Gaze of Fate is it's to let you reroll 1 dice, any single dice for the remainder of the turn. Like it's not I used to joke it was an old command point reroll, but now it's no longer command point reroll. It's just any single dice. And Infernal Gateway is an 18-inch range power that nukes people.
Yeah.
So basically, it's you figure out the closest model within 18 inches. That model's unit takes D3 mortal wounds, and then every unit within 3 inches of that specific model also takes D3. And it becomes D6 mortal wounds if you cast it with a 12 up. So
okay, and he's got a built-in +2 to cast, if I recall. So
if he's like a Lord of Change or something.
Yeah.
Honestly, $5 says this is the same dude who brought the Assassins list to LVO. the whatever it was, the 12 Assassins and then the Fortress of Redemption. I think the real question is, what is the base size in these large demon, these large mortal demon? Because it might be large enough to completely cover up the objective. So like OBSEC doesn't matter if
if you can't get within 3 inches of an objective. Let me check actually.
But then you run into the issue of, are you going to be able to get through the terrain?
Doesn't matter when they're flyers.
Are they all flyers?
The Lord of Change, the Zeech one is the Corn one is. I don't think because he's got the Slaanesh one there as well, hasn't he?
Slaanesh does not fly. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the names of these characters.
No, it's a 130mm base, so that is not going to block an objective completely. It's a snazzy model, but part of me wonders are they snazzier enough than the new Greater Demon models? Like, because the plastic Greater Demon kits these days are just really nice.
All right, in our next list we have Glarrg. Glarrg is running 1,000 Suns and Undivided Demons. He's been a pretty consistent competitor. Season 5, he went 4-1, but it got eliminated in round 1 of the playoffs. And he went 2-3 in Season 4. He's actually been doing the list breakdowns of the entire tournament. So kudos to him for going through all 180 lists.
I mean, that is huge.
20? We have 19, 20.
Because we're already an hour and a half in. We're about a third of the way through ours, and we're only looking at about 20 lists.
Yes.
So looking at this, I mean, 1,000 Suns is kind of overstating it. He has Ahriman, a Demon Prince, and a minimum-sized squad of cultists.
He's also got
that's the 1,001's contingent. So he's showing up for Ahriman and the Demon Princes each.
And Magnus.
Yeah, you got Magnus.
Magnus. Near the end of the list, yeah.
Yeah.
And he has 50 points of reinforcements.
How many points of reinforcements, sorry?
50 points of reinforcements.
So that's going to be for horrors. Because
he's got the 30 horror blob, so he's got some splitting.
30 horror blob. He's got a bunch of Nurglings, good for what for, and you don't need that Locus of Zeech. Because the Locus of Zeech is one of the ones that's really variable.
It's terrible.
It messes with opponents' hit rolls, but it's in a very inconsistent way. So you can just put that to one side and bring Nurglings instead, because Nurglings are just worth the points.
And he's bringing 5 swarms of Nurglings.
Yeah, because that's what he's holding objectives with. All of his HQs are Zechian as well, so they're going to get feel goodsies from the Demon Prince, and they're going to get feel goodsies from Magnus. He's got so much psychic potential in this list that I don't see anybody who isn't running Thousand Suns or Grey Knights or something along those lines having a Words in Edgeways in that phase.
I do like the inclusion of the Changeling, because that's going to give all the Tzeentch demons 6-up in Feel No Pain save, and that will apply to Magnus. It will apply to Airman on a disc, because like for whatever reason you don't have the demon keyword if you're not on a disc, but as soon as you go on a disc, you get
so like the disc is the only demonic mount that is still in non-legends.
Yeah.
So it's like the Lord Discount on Hellstalker. He's on a demon, therefore there's a demon involved, therefore demon keyword.
Yeah. But so Armon's going to have the 6-up Feel No Pain while he's within range of the Changelings.
He's going to be receiving buffs from the Changecast, the bonus strength for the Changecaster as well, where that matters. It could come into play now and then. Along with, probably more relevant to the Lord of Change and Magnus, but like also, if I recall, the Horror's shooting attack is based on their strength, which gets boosted by the Changecaster. So there's like chains of effects going on there.
I mean, I really like the addition of the Changeling. I feel like he's a very underrated character. For people who aren't familiar, he takes on the skills and the weapons of infantry that are in melee range of him. So I played some Space Wolves with him, and
but yeah, that's a good place to bring
obliterated the Space Wolves with that skill.
But it is quite a variable. It's very meta dependent. But I think at the moment, with how good close quarters infantry are, particularly Space Marines close quarters infantry, and how common that is, we'll see it'll see a big effect in this tournament.
Okay. And I do like the Cult of Mutation choice, because that is the one that messes with the psychic power associated with Cult of Mutation is the one that messes with your opponent's movement. I think it was Gem Vessel, but one of the big GT winners brought a Thousand Suns attachment with Cult of Mutation, just because you can mess with your opponent's movement. So
yeah, a positional play is so important, particularly now that you need to take and hold the objective full turn. So if I can stop you from moving on to an objective, that's mine next turn. If I can get you to move off it, then you're not scoring that. And these can be big effects. If I can slow you down, I can start getting you around the table. Like anything that messes with opponent's movement is huge.
And I did say Doombolt's terrible power earlier, but he is taking out Magnus, who has a bonus to cast +2, and there's also a Thousand Sun stratagem that can give you an additional +2. So all of a sudden, your Warp Charge 9 power is casting on a 5. So that's a lot more.
I just got a 6, so we're good.
8. Why do we all have dice just sitting here?
I was on a tabletop RPG. I've got 7 sets of dice on my desk.
This is my painting station, so
that's fair.
Yeah, I've got just all my painting stuff around, so no dice though.
Magnus is also bringing that Infernal Gateway.
Yeah, again, difficult to cast powers. Magnus having the built-in boost and the buff ability, like you mentioned, you got this really nice combination where you can just go, actually, I don't like that corner of the battlefield. That corner of the battlefield is just a whirling maelstrom of death now.
And they also have I don't remember the name of the stratagem, where you have the triangle of casters, where you get the boost to the one of them.
Cabalistic Focus. If your caster's within 6 inches of 2 other Thousand Suns casters, you get a +2 bonus to cast for 1 power. So it's really good for things like Infernal Gateway. Or,
and he's got Arrovor, and he's got the Demon Prince, the Winged Demon Prince, which they're not just they're Thousand Suns casters and they're quick, so they can just be where they need to be, wherever Magnus needs to be. They can just get there to support that if they need to that turn. And if they don't need to, they don't need to be that clusters up, so they can spread around the battlefield, control their smite targets better, those types of things.
I really like this list.
I think this list has got some serious potential. It's going to be difficult to shift off objectives because Nurglings are tough. It's going to be absolutely dominant in the psychic phase. I worry about its long-range shooting, like its ability to engage stuff that's at that initial distance. But you've got Magnus and Harriman there with that movement speed.
Yeah. I mean, pop them behind some Nurglings and fire off all your offensive casting spells. You don't need to worry about shooting phase.
Yeah. I'm more thinking like if somebody goes, I'm going to deploy a Riptide at the back of my deployment zone, or something along those lines, where you go, okay, so my psychic powers are at 18-inch range and you are 36 away, but you've got that high movement. You can just take the fight to them. And Magnus is a big, scary boy.
And we have warp time on the Demon Prince as well,
which is just good.
This is a solid.
Particularly on Demon Prince of Wings. Get your 24 inches up the table, get that first turn charge, really make your opponent think about what they want to do, what they're trying to do. They've got a plan around that every turn, even if you're not getting that psychic power off every turn.
And I do like how Armand and the Demon Prince have buffing support powers, and then Magnus just have 3 offensive powers, like, or technically, I guess, like 4 with Smite, you know?
Yeah.
So. You know what his goal is.
Yeah.
Again, the reinforcement points, you can do some really nice stuff. Something I've seen pointed out is because of order of activations. If somebody overwatches a bunch of charging horrors, you can cut your charge distance down by losing a horror and then putting the new horrors in the front of the unit. But it's the fact he's got 50, he's willing to do a lot of horror splitting. It could be quite interesting to see how what that blob is for, or whether that blob is like just going to be deployed middle of my deployment zone, and it's going to move to react to my opponent's decisions.
All right, our next list we have GoldenMaster with the Undivided Demons and Slaanesh Demons. He will be in Group 8.
Yes. So this one is the one. I think it is. Yes, it has far too many. It's got 4 Keepers of Secrets because it's got 3 and the named one.
I mean, it's got the Nurglings, and we've been over those a lot.
Yeah. It's got Hellbane. It's got Contorted Epitome, which I really like as a model.
Yeah, and it's got Fiends. Fiends are good at holding stuff down in combat because they got the that special rule where you can't really fall back from them unless you have Fly, I believe. It's the
I think that might be the. I have to double check whether it's if you've got Fly or if you're aircraft, but it's it's difficult to get away from them, and they also give a psychic penalty as an aura.
Yeah.
So they're just a really nasty unit to have to throw in. So the other thing is, I think what's pretty obvious here is they had a spare point because they have an 11-person Demonette squad, which I would argue, even if your meta doesn't have much blast in, never bring an 11-man unit when you can bring a 10-man.
Yeah,
the difference between 3 shots and max shots is huge when someone can bring something like Whirlwind Scorpius.
Or even just a frag missile. Like the demons are only toughness 3 with a 5 up invul save. Like you shoot a couple frag missiles at them, and all of a sudden have them die.
Yeah, it's that difference is a big one, particularly for something as fragile as these.
I mean, but the real question is that looking at the rest of the list, there's not really anywhere for those extra points to go.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether would this have been a better list as a 1992 list rather than a 1999. I genuinely think that extra Demonette might be a liability, but we can really dig into these. The fact that they brought 4 Keepers of Secrets, I think that's a really big indicator that Keeper of Secrets might be good.
Like I said, our FLGS just did a local tournament. The Slash player won. Like, no, not like a big old GT or anything, but and he didn't just win. He pretty much dominated.
It's like the as I mentioned before, the locus of swiftness, the special allegiance power for those Slash demons have an aura of run and charge on models which have like 10-inch base movement. So that first turn charges are a thing that just are very straightforward for these lists. And when you've got Exalted Keepers of Secrets in there doing nasty shit, they take a lot of punishment. They keep going. They've got psychic powers to make themselves tougher. You've got Celeste in there, which I've been on receive. My significant other runs /Demons. She's got Celeste painted up in the next room. It's an absolutely beautiful model, and it's fucking terrifying because it has too many attacks. And it's interesting to see that it seems to. I think this could do very well. The thing that I see Slaanesh lists having difficulty with is not taking objectives but holding them, and that's what you got the Nurglings for. Please tell me if I'm ranting on too much.
Nurglings are going to do what Nurglings are going to do.
They're going to sit there and they're going to absorb fire.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of Nurglings, we got another Death Guard army, but these are just the mono Death Guard. They don't have any demons with them. Not too often anymore.
So this is
IronTiger.
Yeah. So this is what I was thinking about when I was talking about the much more demon engine centric Death Guard list. Yeah. So we've got 3 minimum squads of Plague Marines, 3 Hell Brutes, 3 Bloat Drones, 3 Plague Burst Crawlers. This guy knows what he wants to bring to the table. What he wants to bring to the table is armor.
But we don't have any wings on the Demon Prince.
No. So this Demon Prince I think this Demon Prince might be supporting the crawlers.
More than likely. Yeah, the other Death Guard list we saw with the double Demon Princes, one of them had wings, one of them didn't. And the one that didn't was like more oriented towards the supporting the crawlers with the choices.
I like the reroll when you've got something that currently it's still ballistic skill 4, I think. That reroll 1s makes such a difference to how relevant that firepower is.
Yeah. So my concern with this list, I think the Blight Hauler and Chaos Spawn list we saw earlier is better. Because my concern with the Hellbrutes is there's a lot of ranged firepower, and there's nothing that would really take an objective and hold it. Like
5 Plague Marines isn't tough enough to survive the amount of firepower if they get onto the objective without something screening them. Yeah, there's nothing in this list to screen.
Yeah, and just like one OPSEC model would take the objective away from the demon engines, or
the Hell Brutes, or it's I feel like the Chaos Spawn list might be doing this list better.
Yeah.
However, what this list is bringing is a shitload of last cannons, which is useful against things like
quadruple keepers,
World Eaters list that we saw earlier, or the I'm bringing all of the Forge World resin that has ever been made lists we've been seeing. So this is that one list. I hope it remains one list for a little while.
If I could just change one thing about this list, I'd probably swap out the missile launchers on the Hellbrutes for a Fist or a Scourge or a close combat option. Just to have something that could go midfield and hold.
Because the other thing is, I mean, you get Hellbrute Fist on there, and that's flat 3 damage, and flat 3 damage is scary to basically everything in existence. That is one-shotting Terminators. That is ripping half the wounds off a Harlequin transport. It's forcing a lot of feel no pain checks on other Death Guard. It's definitely something I like to see, and it's not something that you're seeing. Chaos doesn't have a lot of sources of flat 3 damage.
Yeah.
We've got some D6, we've got some melter options on some units. And we've got a lot of variables, and then we've got some damage 2 stuff. But damage 3, where you can deal with, you've got damage reduction, or you've got feel no pain saves, or you've got this thing or that thing, or this or the other thing. Flat 3 damage just does work all day, every day. Because Scourge, again, I'd say is good. You've got that 2 damage for dealing with like Primus Infantry. I'm thinking about things like like a Deathwing list or something like that, where you really need to be able to just crush a guy with each blow.
Yeah. And also looking at it, one of the things that makes me think it's not even optimized as well it could be. He's 10 points under. That could have been a special weapon on one of the Plague Marines, or
the icons.
Just
the
yeah,
icon
or the icon, or just something like you could easily spend that 10 points on the Plague Marines, like if they wanted to. So I don't know if they just missed that or if that just wasn't a consideration when building the list.
All right, next list we have
More Death Guard.
Manvichos. Manvichos is running Death Guard and Nurgle Demons.
I'm sensing a theme.
Yeah. I mean, everybody loves those Nurglings. Death Guard already has their book come out. A lot of people have been playing them a lot more often. We got.
Well, they've not got their. They don't have their 9th edition book yet. Their 9th edition book should have come out last weekend. And
that would have been okay.
And I believe the rules cut-off for this was early December in any case. So even if the Death Guard book had come out in time, it will be running with old Death Guard rules.
Yeah. I mean, Nurgle Demons is what we've seen before: Poxbringer, Fleshy Abundance, Regen Wounds, and some Nurglings.
So he's bringing them Blightlord Terminators, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely down with the Blightlord Terminators. I'm down with the big squad of Plague Marines to Cloud of Flies them. I'm down with the Ironclad Furnace, and he's not bringing the 9 Myphitic Blight Haulers, but he's bringing 3, and he is bringing 2 Plagueburst Crawlers. So he's got some good synergies there.
And the other thing is, he's not bringing minimum troops. You've got 3 squads of Poxwalkers, which are there to just sit on objectives. And he's got a 15-man Plague Marine squad as well. So that Plague Marine squad that might be doing the grenade stratagem, that might be that's a threat. That is pushing up the board. That is doing work. That's not just sitting on an objective somewhere.
Because he's bringing that Putrefier too to go with the 15-man blight grenades.
I mean that's scary. That's a lot of difficult to remove wounds. And again, we've got 2 winged demon princes this time, so that's a little bit more expensive. Well, quite a lot more expensive. A little bit more flexibility in terms of what buffs are going where and when.
I think he's planning on being aggressive with those crawlers because they got the Plague Spitters. They don't have the Entropy Cannons. So it's going to be 5 Demon Engines supported by that 4-up Invul Save Demon Prince coming up the midfield or wherever. So I definitely like that. It's got some threats that'll take attention away from the Nurglings, take attention away from the Poxwalkers.
Yeah, because why would you shoot at a unit of 10 Poxwalkers when you've got a Blight Hauler up in your face? And even if you're shooting with bolt guns, you might be better off taking on 1 or 2 wounds off that so you can deal with it next turn.
Then I definitely like Blightlord Terminators. I just love Terminators.
Like Terminators, I think, are in quite an interesting place right now. Particularly, I mean, very much more with the 3 wounds. Currently, they're in this list. There are 2 wound Terminator, but they're still scary. They're still relatively cheap for what they can do, and the fact they're coming in with those combi melters gives you, I think this kind of highlights how good melter weapons are in this, where everything in this list that can have a melter weapon has a melter weapon, and I'm feeling can Blight Lords natively deep strike. I feel like they probably can.
Oh yeah, they're Terminators. They can do it.
So that is just that's sitting there. It's 5-man squad. So whilst it is a threat, it's not. I'm trying to fit 10 40 mil bases into somewhere more than 9 inches away from all enemy units. So they can just fit in a gap somewhere and go, okay, that Impulsor is dead. That whatever. That Riptide is dead. Whatever needs to go can.
Next list, we have NickDevotion. He did not play last season, but he went 5-0 in season 4. He is running Emperor's Children, Slaanesh Demons. I don't believe he played Demons or Chaos in season 4, so this would be something new.
But if there's a player out there who's gone 5-0 with something, and then they've moved to a new list, that means that they see some potential in that new list.
Oh, yeah. And surprisingly, no Nurglings.
Yeah,
It's
this is pure Slaanesh. So they're
Yeah.
leaning heavily into so this is going to be a very heavy list. Emperor's Children Legion trait is fight first in the combat phase.
Yeah, it's like always counters charging basically whenever you go to the fight phase. Like
so you're always fighting first. Most Slaanesh demons just have that in their things anyway. So you're wanting to be in close combat, you're wanting to be fighting, and you're fighting first, and you're getting a lot of hits in. The Locust, I'll be interested to see what he's bringing in terms of. So he's bringing Marines bit of this list. It's a unit of cultists, a unit of noise Marines, which they can bring as troops, which are quite nice. Cult Marines, so they've got the chosen stat block plus cool weapons that ignore cover, which is a much bigger effect in ninth, and can shoot when they die.
Yeah. Well, the strength for Emperor's Children Noise Marines is that stratagem that brings them all the weapons up to damage 2. So
yeah, no, that was the other thing I was
it's only
say.
AP 0, but like every failed save is killing a Primaris. So
yeah, and you're getting enough shots. I was going to bring that up, but I mean, I consider that much more of a factor to consider if this was a 20-man squad. But this is a 10-man, so it might be less what was they were considering. Also, 28-man cultist squad, so that's going to be fun to be moving around the battlefield.
Yeah, I would not want to do that on table.
But the other thing is, like, we've got a Chaos Spawn again, like a Chaos Spawn, 23 points. Leave it on your backfield objective. You don't need to worry about it for the rest of the game, and it's just there. 23 points for 5 victory points a turn. Fair enough.
Because they get advanced charge. As long as they're within 6 inches of one of those. As long as they're
within 6 inches of
3 keepers.
of keepers of secrets, they are advancing charging. And that is on something like a Lord Discordant that really wants to be able to get into the mix fast before it gets blown up. Something like a Winged Demon Prince. Does that Winged Demon Prince have warp time? No, prescience.
He has prescience. Yeah.
Okay.
That is probably to either cast on himself to get a Death of the False Emperor on 5-ups, or it's cast on like the Noise Marines to hit on 2s.
Yeah, it might be a cast on the Noise Marines and then move up. Maybe it might be just a first turn cast and then Chaos Familiar.
Yeah, because I'm looking at, because Prescience is one of those powers that will only affect the Chaos Space Marines. It won't affect the demons at all.
No.
And really the only targets there, because it would be pointless to target the Lord Discordant because he's already got the +1 and that's capped now at 9.
Yeah. So. And even if there is like a -2, like 2 -1s floating around, fishing for that 7+ like power to cancel out one of those, no, just take your lumps and spend your psychic phase somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't go with Delightful Agonies, or maybe he went with it on. So he went with it for the Slaanesh Demons, which strangely enough on the Slaanesh Demons is only a 6-up Feel No Pain.
But it's a 5+ cast.
5-up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a but you can only, because they're named the same, you can only cast one of them in the face.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting distinction, but it does matter. Yeah, so I'm liking the Exalted Keeper of Secrets for Quicksilver Reflexes again, adding bonuses to those advanced and charge rolls.
Yeah.
You've got a bunch of minimum size squads of Demonettes, which are, I know you get bonus attacks on Demonettes in a 20-person squad, but you're not going to keep a 20-person Demonette squad alive.
Yeah.
They die to Balkans.
I'm also really liking the Glutton for Punishment on Lord Disco, because that's the Warlord trait, reduces damage taken by 1.
Yep.
And I know for my Iron Warriors, I'm running 2 Lord Discos. One of them has the Iron without Warlord trait, which it was kind of an experiment when I first started taking it, but the 5-up Feel No Pain on Lord Disco has been critical in a lot of games. And the other Lord Disco is a Marcus Slaanesh, and I got a Delightful Agony Sorcerer floating around. So it's like I have 2 Lord Discos running with 5-up Feel No Pain. Like that's any sort of defensive buff on them.
16?
Yeah.
18 wins?
I mean, functionally a lot more because they can't be put down in 1 turn and then we're playing Iron Wars. We got all the all the good stratagems.
Yeah, you're sitting there
Just,
going,
Like hand to hand.
you got my Lord Discordant down to 1 wound on in your combat phase. Now it's my turn, and now it's got 5 wounds left.
Yeah.
That's so demoralizing. And that matters.
But-
So that's not an option in this list, but there are a lot of nasty options. The other things, talking about stratagems, we've got a pair of quite nasty, close combat oriented Emperor's Children characters here, and they get a lot of stratagem support for those in Psychic Awakening. So that's going to be some really nasty up close play if they can get the support from Keeps of Secrets. Now, the thing I'll say here is that what I said about the Locust only applies if there is a wide enough movement channel for a Greater Demon base and a Lord Discordant base to be within 6 inches of each other.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue.
So it's depending on if there's buildings, if there's like forests for that movement penalty, what's sitting around on this board, and what the movement lanes are like, and where the deployment zones are, and the spacing between zones is going to have a really, really big effect on how this list plays. You've got the Fiends in there as well to mess with your opponent's ability to get out of bad fights. I could see them being like the second row behind the Greater Demons. So you'll go, okay, I'm going to charge like 1 Fiend in, maybe take the Overwatch, maybe get them tied up, and then I'll slam my Greater Demon in, and now this unit is fucked because it's in combat with a Great Demon and it can't get away. I don't think he's kept any points for summoning, no. So it's just this stuff. But yeah, this is a scary list, and Slaanesh Demons are good.
Without any surprise, our next list we also have another Slaanesh Demons. This is Sam98. He went 5-0 in Group 20 last season, and he made it to round 2 before elimination.
Yeah, I mean, we've really already covered the large portions of this list. It's got the 3 Keepers of Secrets. It's got the Name Keeper of Secrets. It's got some Fiends in there. The big thing is it's got a 30-man Demonette squad. Like that's.
The other thing I'll say here is he's gone really heavy on the characters, really heavy on HQs, running 3 patrols. So he's completely killed CP. So he's not going to be summoning in units. He's not going to like teleporting in units.
He's
not
got
going
5
to be.
CP left.
Yeah, he's bringing the 4 Greater Demons and Celeste and the Contorted Epitome. So this is got a lot of threat on the table right from the get-go, and it's going to be difficult to outmaneuver this list because everything in it advances and charges, or is within 6 of something that advances and charges. It's just fast, and it is fast and hard to escape.
It seems deceptively simple, almost.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot to say, but
it's fast. It
you
hits
got to be
hard.
good at like knowing your rules, knowing your movement phase and charge movements to really bring it to a victory. Which if the dude went 5-0, like he probably knows the stuff.
The other thing to say is, I know he didn't really raise it much because they are like big scary melee meat sticks, but all of the Greater Demons in these lists are Psychers as well. They're cast 2. Is it cast 2 or cast 1?
Not sure.
But they're Psychers, and if somebody shows up on match day and they've got 6 Psychers in their list, they're doing a lot of damage in that phase, even if it's just on smites. Like, you can do a lot when you've got, you can't just like, I'll tie it up with this minimum size squad. So you go, okay, I'm smiting that, and now I'm charging.
Also in Group 5, we have Seal running Death Guard and Nurgle Demons, a recurring theme.
It's almost as if Nurgle Demons are good. So our first great and clean one of the analysis, which is kind of cool. Exalted great and clean one at that. So they're not just having it there for cool factor, but they're there to be a big heavy threat, and a non-minimum sized Nurgling swarm. They've got a 5 base Nurgling squad. So that's planning on sticking around for a long while. And again, you've got that iron clock furnace for your enormous pile of blight haulers.
I mean, 9 blight haulers, Mortarian,
So
Nurgle swarms. Like,
this is 9 blight haulers, Mortarian, and a great and clean one, and some Nurglings. Like this is a very focused. This list knows what it wants to do, and what it wants to do is push up the table.
I know. In an earlier list, you were concerned with the amount of blight haulers they wouldn't be able to handle hordes. That's what you got Mortarian for with his 18 attacks or whatever. Or
because you've got the sweep. Yeah. Like that's not getting tied up by like a 20-man conscript squad.
Yeah. So.
Somebody throwing, I don't know, a 28-man cultist squad that we may have seen earlier this evening. Obviously, I don't know much else of whatever in the other 160 lists that we're not going to be looking at tonight. But
also, the great and clean one has the bell. So basically, on a 4-up, you're bringing a Mythic Blight Holder back at full health.
And that's
because they're technically Nurgle demons.
Yeah, that's big. Because it's a 100-point model and not easy to kill between 3 invulnerable save.
I think they have 8 wounds, disgusting, resilient, and
they're disgusting resilient.
The iron claw.
Ouch. Ouch. Yeah, that's a lot of killing.
Call it now. Sorcerer and Paladin and Nurgle, new meta choice.
Something has to be.
All right.
Yeah, Mortarian being included is cool. It's nice to see these big centerpiece models. I mean, we saw Magnus in the earlier list. It's nice that, also the whole having multiple warlord, he's having the psychic powers, he's having warlord trait, he's got, he's a big scary boy.
Yeah. All right, our third Thousand Suns, Seekingasaga, Group 16. No recent history of games.
Yeah, calling it Thousand Suns kind of a stretch because it's literally Magnus, Mortarian, 2 Exalted Lords of Change, and a bunch of Nurglings. So, not really Thousand Suns.
Wait, hold on a sec.
It's 3 great tastes that go great together.
10, 15, 19, 23, 27 Nurgling swarms.
But that's a lot of difficult to remove wounds. Not gonna lie. And then, so all of your list anti-infantry firepower has to go into Nurglings because A, there's an infinite number of Nurglings, and B, what else are you going to be shooting at?
Everything else is pretty hard to kill because you got Magnus. He's got 2 support powers. He's got a defensive power, so he's not going to be fully defensive psychic focused like we saw on the other list.
But he can
do a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
and then Mortarian, of course, is hard to kill.
Yeah,
he's got the double Lord of Change that are both equipped to be hard to kill. The first one looks like the kind of standard incorporeal form, possible robe, and then the other one has the Soul Eater stave. So whenever he kills stuff with psychic powers, he gets wounds back. So
yeah,
it's like when you got your anti-tank firepower, it's like, okay, what do I pick? Like the super hard to kill Lord of Change. The Lord of Change is going to get wounds back. Magnus, who's got buff powers, or Mortarian. There's not a good option.
The thing I will say about this list is that you only start with 3 CP because you brought those 2 Lord of War detachments. You're sitting there going, I really hope that nobody's forcing me to re-roll dice here. You kind of need to bank on your choices, your choices being correct, so that you don't need to re-roll a charge or re-roll an invulnerable save. You're hoping that somebody isn't bringing like a volcano cannon knight or something like that.
I notice I win more consistently whenever the fewer re-rolls I have to spend command points on.
Oh yeah, but that's mostly because you're not putting yourself in gameplay situations where you need to make re-rolls.
Yeah,
but it's important. Like it's a resource that's there to be spent, and it's perfectly okay to spend it in list building. but we need to take into account the effects of spending it in list building. And when, admittedly, when you're doing like, okay, I've got like 3 different factions here going on, so I've got like 40, 50 stratagems I could be using, but I've got nothing to use them on, then things start getting weird with CP spending. So it might just be that, okay, I've got these here, and I'm maybe going to use it for like re-rolling Psychic Fate powers and getting charges in, and that's about it.
So looking at the name of that he put on his list, he's calling this the Alpha Bash Brothers. So I think that's saying a lot about what his game plan is. He's looking to Alpha Strike and just smash in faces.
Yeah, and it's going to be Mortarion and Magnus going in shoulder to shoulder. They're not going to be sitting at opposite ends of the battlefield,
right,
doing things. They're going to be mutually supporting.
I mean, he's already going in with a ton of mortal psychic spells, then coming in with a Death Hex to finish off any other kind of big threat that's holding onto those invul saves, so they can just smash his face in.
Yeah, something like Nemesis Dread Knight or Grandmaster Nemesis Dread Knight sitting with the 3+ of vulnerable save. Something like a Smash Captain or
Harlequins.
I almost Death Hex to Solitaire. That would have been a beautiful moment.
Yeah, I haven't seen it here, but around my area, the big old Plague Bearer blobs are kind of still a thing. So Death Hex is useful for me, definitely. Custodes with the still 3-up invul save Storm Shield.
Oh yes, they've still got that going on, haven't they? So
like, I never leave home without Death Hex, but that's kind of my own personal meta, I guess.
Well, I like having it in the pocket, but I tend to run with a sorcerer with agonies and prescience, because the way I play, prescience has a big effect on it. I really like my habits. I really like Weight of Fire, and +1 to hit man. It really makes it's a force multiplier in that.
See, that's why for my Iron Warriors, I include a Word Bearer's detachment, and I get the sorcerer with that book relic, and he knows 3 powers, so you can have I can have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah, but I think I did the Warlord trait that gives you an extra psychic power. I did that in one of my recent matches, and that actually worked surprisingly well. But yeah, it's having Chaos Familiar as an option, so you can swap 2 Death Hex for the 1 round you need it, because it's that short range. I think it's a really good tool. Like Death Hex is a very specific tool for a very specific job, and I'm not gonna put it in my lists by default.
See, I do mine with my sorcerer when I drop them with the obliterators, because that gives me the opportunity to focus my fire on the biggest threat with those obliterators.
Yeah.
And then, Chaos Familiar, can switch it out if I need to.
But the other thing is, if you're deep striking in, you've got Smite as another option, right? You're in Smite range, so you could do Prescient Smite or Prescient Death Hex, depending on what you're shooting at, or whatever other buff you just want to throw out instead of Prescient.
Smacks Mcgee.
Smacks Mcgee and his Undivided Demons. So let's.
It looks like the exact same list as the one we just saw. It's got Magnus, Mortarion, 2 Lords of Change, and a bunch of Nurglings. Like,
yeah,
it's almost identical. It
is.
It's not identical because it's like 1 point different in costs. I think it might be different.
No, because it's got the Lord of Change with the Impossible Robe and Incorporeal Form. The other has the Soul Eater Stave.
No, I misread the last one. It is identical.
Yeah,
absolutely identical.
Only difference is Magnus does not have a cult, but it doesn't matter because he can't take.
Yeah, he doesn't get a cult. So
yeah.
So is this maybe kind of a new meta pick? Who knows?
Only difference between this list and that list is he played last season and went 5-0.
Yeah, so somebody's
gameplay.
So somebody is seeing something scary about these 2 Demon Primarchs, other than the fact that they're Demon Primarchs. Maybe he's got a way of keeping them alive, because like the big thing about these big scary models are they're Fireman. And if your game plan relies on having both in 2 500-point models, you need a way of keeping both of them alive.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy thing to do when everything in your opponent's list is shooting. you can only roll, you can only succeed on so many vulnerable saves.
He has also named this list the Bash Brothers, so I think there's definitely a theme going on. There might be
These might
something out
be
there that we're
people
not
that know
familiar
each
with.
other. They might be people that are getting their list from the same place if they're on like a forum or chat room somewhere, a Discord server where they're working things out. They've tried really. Maybe this is something they're pushing. Maybe this is something that they found online. This could be interesting to see how it plays between these two players, where we've got a successful win record from one player and no knowledge of how skilled as an individual that the other player is, whether it is one of these kind of high skill floor lists. Do you need to be like a real master of the game to be able to work with a list that is specialized?
Like
Great
every
observation.
time I've gone to a tournament and I played against a player where they have a net list, and half the time it's clear they just net list it and they have no idea how it actually plays. So my money's on the dude who went 5-0 to do a lot better with that list.
Yeah,
Mcgee.
Just because even if it seems simple, like you got to know it.
Yeah, there's board skill. There's knowing how where bits interact. And whilst I am a guy who really likes doing theory work, really likes mathing things out, there is no substitute for getting your reps in, playing your games. We don't know if this other player is maybe the best player in the world. He just was busy last season, but they're an untested variable at the moment.
All right, our second Iron Warriors list.
Woo!
My favorite list.
It's our boy.
Is he one of our guys from our Discord? Are we familiar with him?
I don't recognize the name.
Stadler Dance?
I don't recognize the name, but maybe they're just not very active. If you are in our server, mad props. If you aren't in the server, get in the server.
Yeah, they just need to call one of their Lord Discos Hansu, and Hansu on a Discord or Hellstalker.
Well, so you've got the two Lord Discordants, one of which is marked Khorne for the Talisman of Burning Blood to get that advance in charge. The other is marked Tzeentch. I think they've got a lot of Tzeentch Psykers for the support. Yeah, all the 3 Forge Fiends with Mark of Tzeentch and Hades autocannons. 3 Blood Slaughterers, which I really quite like. But they've gone for the Slaughter Blade and not the Harpoon. Now, this is a bit of a contentious thing. I've seen a lot of very strong opinions being thrown around about this. I like the Harpoon on Blood Slaughterers because the halving someone's movement really affects their ability to. If you slam that at a slow unit, that takes them out of the game for a turn. If you slam that at a fast unit, they become a slow unit. It completely forces your opponent to change their game plan, and anytime you're forcing your opponent to change their game plan, you're forcing errors.
Yeah.
So I like those. They've gone for the Slaughter Blades instead, which is just making this a solid melee threat. I ran a list with 2 Blood Slaughterers in it recently, and they were fantastic. I love them to bits. You've got a 3rd Lord Discordant in the 2nd detachment as well.
I believe they hit on 3s naturally, so Lord Disco makes it on 2s.
So, well, now they do. I'd have to check the exact dates because if the rules, I believe the new Forge Rule book may have come out after the list submission for this. If they did, then these will be hitting on 4s. Still might be worth taking, especially if you're running 3 Lord Discordants, so you're likely to be hitting on 3s anyway.
Yeah.
But they are still scary models. Got a Decimator in there with double Soul Burners for some mortal wound generation. Big pile of cultists for holding objectives.
It's interesting that the Master Possession has
Sorry?
It's interesting that the Master Possession has the Demonsmith ability because he's not going to be able to keep up with the Lord Discordants unless he's relying on that warp time from the Sorcerer to keep him up there, because you have Cursed Earth and Infernal Power, which is not going to be very relevant unless he is with those Discordants.
I mean, the thing is, like, all 3 of those things are 6-inch orders.
He's probably hanging out with the Forge Fiends, if I had to guess. Like,
Yeah, so I feel like he's either hanging out with the Forge Fiends or he's going to kind of slow down the Lord Discordants so that they're sitting in kind of just within that aura in front of him and until they can get an easy charge. I think it might be that he's gone Demon Smith on the Master of Possession so he doesn't have to worry about multiple like keeping models within auras of multiple other models. He only has to worry about things being near the Master of Possession.
And the Master of Possession is going to be safe from being targeted because of his character, and the Discordants are also above the wound limit.
Wound threshold. So you can have like 2 Lord Discordants and a Blood Slaughterer babysitting your MOP.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big question with this list is which demon engines is he actually going to put inside of the 6-inch range? Because like, there's no way he's keeping every single demon engine within.
You're going to get 1 or 2 at max.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 demon engines here. 10 with the Decimator. 10 demon engines. Like that you just because of base size, you can't get them all within 6. So it's thinking about like this list is going to be very variable depending on deployment. It might be like the plan changes depending on the opponent. You've got a lot of stuff going on here. So the Mark of Tzeentch, I'm not that big a fan of in this list.
Yeah, there's not really much of a necessity for that. None of them have Slaanesh. Do the Forge Fiend? No.
Well, he's got the sorcerer with the the sorcerer doesn't even have a Weaver of Fates.
Yeah.
Like there's if you're not going to bring us a power to buff, then don't worry about marks on your demon engines. But if you are going to mark your demon engines, Slaanesh. I genuinely feel like that's the objectively correct mark these days, because Delightful Agonies, it's easy to cast, and it prevents more damage than the other 2 psychic powers, considering all 3 of them are defensive tools.
And you know, if I had to guess, he's probably going to cast Familiar away to smite for a Weaver of Fates, and that's the plan with the Tzeentch sorcerer. And then you can do
all 3 in a turn with the stratagem.
And then if he needs to, he can do the Great Sorcerer stratagem to cast Warp Time wherever he needs to go. And
that might be the tool, but it's again.
And he's not bringing Obliterator, so he doesn't have that command point sync. Because I remember when I was designing my Iron Wars list, I'm like, I'm gonna bring this unit of Rubric Marines, and I can swap out the Baby Smite for the Weaver of Fates. But in practice, I found I never had the command points for that because I had the Obliterators, and they were draining like 3-4 command points every turn.
I'm dreaming like 5, 6, 7.
I'm throwing Havocs down the table, and they're spending 3 a turn. Like it's.
Yeah, so he doesn't have any big command point sync, so that might be the plan, is to make the sorcerer.
I mean, on the flip side is like this list it has a couple of things in the fact that you're wanting to do Demon Forge basically twice a turn.
Yeah, Demon Forge, the
your shooting phase, your combat phase, enemy combat phase. That's 3 times a battle round. You're likely to be wanting to do
the Restore 3 Wounds.
Restore 3 Wounds stratagem every battle round. So that's already a reasonable sync, but those are all 1-point costs. So it's not enormous, but it does add up. And that wound restoring is the main reason why this is an Iron Warrior. Maybe Tank Hunters, depending what your opponents are bringing. If somebody else, if you're sitting on a list and there's somebody who's just put 9 Blight Haulers on the table, you're like, yeah, I want to re-roll some wounds against that.
I mean, you also have 3 Discordants who have Spirit Thief. So you're healing or you're damaging enemy vehicles as well.
Yeah. And don't forget as well, I mean, I know that kind of for us, when the way we see a Lord Discordant's aura is as a buff, we think about the Lord Discordant having that +1 to hit aura, but it is also a -1 to hit aura for enemy vehicles. Doesn't come up much because by and large, if a Lord Discordant is charging a vehicle, that vehicle is dead.
Right.
But if you've got like a unit of 3 Blight Haulers, that's a lot of wounds to chew through. But you can get in combat with that. You can throw those -1s down, and it becomes very difficult for you to get killed in return. You know, if you considering that you've got -1 to be hit, and the 2+ armor save, and the invulnerable save, and maybe vulnerable save depending on what they're shooting at you with, and maybe a feel no pain, depending on what else is going on. Maybe a 4+ invulnerable if you've got Weaver of Fates going on. That can really be difficult to deal with. And then on your turn, oh, I'm back into my top bracket. Enjoy having all of these attacks again.
Right.
What are they using Forge Fiends for backline objectives?
Yeah, I'd have to imagine that, or even midfield objectives, like with the Blood Slaughterers and the Lord Discos.
You're just
use
slamming
those
which
to go after
units.
the
You don't
opponent's
care where those are.
objectives. Yeah, Forge Fiends, because I'm thinking because he took the Demon Jaws, so they're probably going to be in the midfield, like because he wants them to have some sort of close combat threat.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I would argue that maybe it might have been we stick him on the backfield, they give him a close combat weapon so that if something gets into them, like someone deep strikes Zephyrim or Raptors or Assault Marines or whatever else in Warp Spiders.
Yeah. And again, going back to the Skull Cannon, it's a big tough thing that
that
normal
you can't shut down by
harassment
charging.
units are not good against.
Clearly, we are Iron Warrior fanboys here. So I think this is my.
I didn't get back into this game to paint guys in fatigue.
All right, 2 more lists to go. We got Sunbel, Group 3. Last season, he was in Group 10, or they were in Group 10, went 3-2. They are running the Death Guard, Undivided Demons, which I feel like we are not going to see a whole lot of difference in this list than what we're already used to.
Okay,
so Chaos Spawn might fit.
There's the second Mutilator.
I never pronounce it. Blight Hauler Spam with the Ironclad Furnace.
Herald of Slaanesh on Seeker Chariot. That's an interesting choice. Yeah. I am trying to work out what that is doing for this list, because literally everything else in this list is Nurgle marked, right?
Yeah. I mean, even the Furies are Nurgle marked.
Yeah, so that choice has been made instead of a Nurgle Herald. They've gone for a Slaanesh Herald. They've chosen a buffing psychic power rather than a damaging psychic power, and a buffing psychic power that can only self-target because it's the only Slaanesh demon in the list. Like, I feel like that, if that was to misclick, then it was a definite poor. Like, I don't see how that choice serves anything else in this. Everything else we've seen, like we see all the Furies earlier. We like the Furies. They're good for the objective play and secondaries. Nurglings, can't say enough good things about Nurglings. We love our Blight Haulers. We love our Contaminated Monstrosity Spawn. We've got this Demon Prince of Nurgle here, which is revoltingly resilient with the Anklet Burner.
Like, it's not even an issue of the Blight Haulers being bad against hordes, because you got kind of the Chaos Spawn to throw out the number of attacks. And the Secret Chariot throws out a lot of attacks, but it's just kind of a...
It's fast, it's fragile, and mostly useful to buff fast Slaanesh shit.
It is a character, though, so it's going to have protection because it's got only 7 wounds.
Yeah.
So...
Because, like, even the Furies are Nurgle.
Yeah.
There's nothing else in this list. So why would you
give up
one Slaanesh to give up the Nurgle Loki?
If you're giving that up, you have to give that up to gain something. And there has to be, like, we've seen Nurgle HQs that are less than 95 points. So it isn't a cost-saving measure. What is it about this unit that makes it better than bringing a Nurgle Herald
and like getting the Locusts and stuff, yeah.
And getting the Locusts and maybe getting another base of Nurglings.
Okay, so the Locus of Virulence, I cannot pronounce that for my life, is giving wound roll of 6+ for Nurgle demon units within 6 inches of any friendly model with this Locus inflicts 1 additional damage.
So that is a relevant thing against Primaris.
Yeah, especially with the amount of demon engines, like...
Yeah, you slam that on a missile launcher, suddenly your frag missiles are killing Primaris.
But yeah, because they are Nurgle demons. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything in this list is Nurgle except for the
Everything in this list
Chariot.
is a Nurgle demon apart from the Spawn, Poxwalker, and Blightbringer. And the Slaanesh. Like, I want to sit down with the person who wrote this list and ask, was this intentional? Was this like an early draft? Or was this something, like, was this originally going to be like a lot more Slaanesh in this detachment, and then you just kind of tweaked it until it was just this, and it just needed one more round of revision?
Yeah, like if this was a physical tournament, I would suspect that the dude had just painted up the Secret Chariot and wanted to use it. But
yeah,
if it's TTS, it's
again,
like,
this is what I was thinking in terms of like thinking way back to the Thousand Suns list we did at the start of this, which had the 3 squads of mixed bolters and warp flamers. I'm thinking that's got to be somebody who's like painted up squad markings on his unit,
or and the icons of flame, which are kind of a waste of 5 points. It's like give your aspiring sorcerer a plasma pistol, like
right.
Yeah, but it's okay. So like, but you're not using a physical model here, so there's not that psychological element to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sunbelt, let us know. We're very interested.
Honestly, just
this isn't me. I don't want to sound like I don't want to be an asshole. I don't want to be having a go. I'm genuinely interested as to the decision-making process that led to this, because I can't fathom it.
And like
it might be that you're seeing something that we're not, and I want to know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm looking at this in Battlescribe, and I'm like, it puts out a good number of attacks. It's character. It's got character protection. I'm just not seeing like what it brings, like beyond just a number of good attacks. Like,
but again, is there nothing that's Nurgle for 90 points that does that?
Yeah, I would just definitely be curious to why this choice was made. Like,
yeah, the Blight Haulers, recurring thing, Chaos Spawn, recurring thing. So these are known quantities. They are known to be good. So we're seeing a lot of stuff that's known to be good, and then we're seeing some experimental stuff kind of around the fringes.
One thing I just thought of, maybe so it's 5 power level, so I believe it's only 1 command point to deep strike, and I'm thinking he might be taking it as a deep striking unit, like because it gets bonuses on the charge, like it has this sighting impact, which is okay. But it does have bonuses on the charge. So I'm thinking it might be a deep strike threat. Like,
yeah, maybe.
But we only have 3 command points to start with.
Yeah, so you'd have to spend 1. You'd only have 2 command points because you have to spend 1 to deep strike it. Like,
yeah,
we're losing 2 for the detachment. Gifted Decay. Oh, the Chaos Spawns all take 1 as well.
Yeah, because they're contaminated monstrosity. And they do this. Yeah, if you can give a Chaos Spawn a 5+ feel no pain. Do that 100% of the time, because they're 23 points per model for 4 wounds. It's absolutely absurd how tough that gets with the feel no pain.
Final list.
Another Emperor's Children list.
Made it to the end. Emperor's Children.
Yeah, I'm thinking for your YouTube, you're definitely gonna have to split this up into a couple different videos.
Well, we can. Like, I'll leave editing in your capable hands.
We'll see what I cut it down to.
You could just cut out me repeating myself for an hour, and then there's reasonable.
Cut out everything but the Iron Warrior stuff.
Sudden bursts of enthusiasm. Wait, we actually know about this stuff. So look at this mischievous
Wtheal, Group 17.
Bloodthirster, Insentient Rage, Keeper of Secrets, Lord of Change, the big 3.
Ooh.
There. Again, we've got a big bloodletter bomb, 25 bloodletters.
With the banner, Blood Reaper, Demonic Icon, Instrument of Chaos.
So they're fully stacked up for cool shit. -1 CP, so I'm assuming that's an upgrade from Engine War.
No, the banner of blood on the bloodletters. That's a Codex upgrade. That's the 3d6.
Oh, that's a 3d6 charge. Cool. Then a shitload of Nurglings and some Nurgle Furies.
Yeah.
Lord of Change is the Warlord. Right. Emperor's Children Sorcerer. Delightful Accolades Warp Time.
Immediately, what I really like about this list that 3 mutilators in the Emperor's Children detachment.
Yeah.
Like, because this is the one legion where mutilators can deep strike and make the charge with near 100% reliability.
Yes.
So
really,
yeah.
like,
so
I guess I'm just one of the persons I want every unit to be good in some way.
Yeah.
Mutilators have been like terrible for so long.
But they're seeing some use, and we've seen them in a couple of other lists for doing actions because they are at 100 points for 3, entirely disposable and difficult to dispose of. Like it's in that sweet spot of you don't want to devote an entire turn's firepower from 4 squads to kill this unit, which is what you'd have to do. But if you don't do that, I gain a bunch of victory points. It forces a bad decision.
Yeah.
But they don't do much else than that, unless it's Iron Warriors where you can re-roll their flesh metal, and even then you have to get them there, or Emperor's Children where you can go, that die on that charge is a 6 now.
And I mean, I know in the previous discussion we talked a lot about how like skull cannons and forge fiends are like backline threats that are not vulnerable to your typical backline harassers, except mutilators are like, okay, now we're hitting you with like strength a lot and AP a lot and damage a lot. Like,
yeah, it's
like,
yeah, it's a can opener, and it's, yeah, it can deal with a threat like a skull cannon sort of thing. It can deal with a threat like a predator sat at the back of the game, back of the field, or an impulsor, or a Lehman Russ, or something that's just hanging back and doing long range firepower. You can just go, actually, I'm charging with these mutilators, and even if I don't kill you in 1 round, you're now stuck shooting at the mutilators, who've got that 5+ invulnerable save, that 2+ armor save, that 3 wounds apiece, whatever they have at the moment. They're not easy to get rid of. So we've got the Noise Marines as troops again, and we've got the enormous cultist blob.
30
cultists, including 1 guy with a flamer, who is doing a lot of work. That's got to be. You just had points left over at the end of the list at that point, really.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the only reason you ever took anything on a cultist that isn't the auto guns.
I mean, it doesn't matter if they've got shit all ballistic skill if it's a flamer. Like, a cultist shooting a flamer is the same as a marine shooting a flamer.
Until the
they don't
Space Marines 9.5 Codex, where they have Startaze flamers.
Just give me an extra point of AP on everything, and I will be happy. Noise Marines again stacked it with those sonic weapons, sonic blasters and blastmasters. Good to see, because again, ignoring cover is a big part of 9th. Like, it's not just that there's more terrain in 9th, which there is, but there's also a lot of effects kind of from the tail end of 8th, early end of 9th, which go counters having cover. So just going, actually, no, you don't get that bonus to your armor save. It's effectively giving it AP, and then you can go and give it extra damage in Emperor's Children. You're shooting again you can shoot twice with it because you're Slaanesh marked. Yeah. You can shoot when someone kills you, which is, you're not going to throw them out there to be killed to use that ability, but it means that it can come in clutch. If you've got 3 men go down from a 2-man, I'm thinking about shooting at Primaris squads which have really low model count.
Yeah.
Like, if you can kill a model in response, you are doing a lot of damage there.
And I think the other thing I really like about the list is the demon portion has got a Bloodthirster, a Keeper of Secrets, and a Lord of Change. So it's got some variety as far as your big demon monsters go, and I think that's good for messing with your opponent's target priority. Like, if I'm playing against this list, I'm like, I don't know, like, the 3 demons have very different stat profiles, they do very different things, and I'm like, which one do I need to kill to mess with my opponent's plans,
Yeah, which of these is the threat to me? And that is very matchup dependent. Again, it's very deployment dependent, and it's going to be difficult. So I'm imagining that it kind of deploying against this list, and obviously you want to deploy stuff that doesn't force your opponent it doesn't give away your plan too early. But he goes, okay, second deployment, Bloodthirster, center of my deployment zone. And then I go, okay, right. Do I now have to deploy something to deal with that, right? But if I then go, okay, here's my anti-tank predator, my last cannon predator is going over here with clear line of sight to that. He goes, okay, I'm deploying my Keeper of Secrets out of line of sight of that. Or something along those lines. Like, he can afford, because he's got these 3 big threats, and they're separate deployments, and they are doing very different things. You can do a lot of interesting mind games in deployment with forcing decisions. At any time you're forcing your opponent to change their plan, you're giving them an opportunity to make a mistake.
All right. So, final questions before we get out of here. Who are your top 3 of these lists?
Okay, so I'm looking at this and I'm seeing, I want to be the second death, like the pure death god list we saw, with like that absurd pile of Chaos Spawn and Mythopathic Blight Haulers. I think that's going to be a very strong contender. So that is from Arrovor.
I have him as my number 1. So
yeah, I think he's doing got quite a good thing going on. I think the Slaanesh heavy list where you had the 3 Keepers of Secrets and then the Nurglings. The Slaanesh Demons Undivided. I can find them where it was. The GoldenMaster. Yeah, GoldenMaster. I think that's got a lot of potential. Just being
that was the 4 Keeper Secrets list and Sislekel, or whatever how you pronounce his name.
Silesk. I'd like to see that doing very well, and I feel like it might just be my Demon Engine Iron Warrior heart here, but I would very much like to see Stadler Dance do well.
Yeah, I want that list to be number 1, like 100%.
There have been, looking at recent tournaments, what recent tournaments there have been, Iron Warrior Demon Engine lists have done okay out of them. Obviously, the nature of the tabletop sim format does affect that because big cultist blobs become. We've seen a few in these lists, but they do become impractical at a certain point.
Yeah, I mean, Stadler Dance, he's my favorite. Like, I really hope he wins. I do think that 4 Keeper Secrets list will probably take first or second. Like, I think that's probably the strongest list. And then third, really the Pure Thousand Suns list. I want that to do well. I don't know.
You're a little biased here. I think you're a little biased.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't do well, then you're more likely to get first. Isn't that how this works?
All right, for mine, I'm going to have to go with NickDevotion's Emperor's Children and Slaanesh Demons list.
Okay.
Glarrg's Thousand Suns. And Arrovor, same as you, Legroom.
Oh, yeah, I think we've definitely got some strong contenders. We've got some interesting decisions being made here as well. Please get in touch with us in the comments or on the Discord or Twitter DMs or whatever. If you've got if you are one of the people we featured on this podcast, video, what are we calling this format, on the show, because we want to understand the decisions that you guys. We're trying to puzzle out why you're making these lists the way you are. By and large, I think we've got a decent grasp on it, but we're not inside your head, and so maybe a couple of weeks' time we have a look at some of the win rates, and then maybe reach out and people for interviews or what have you if there are interesting developments.
Once that ends out, we'll take a look at where our guesses have placed and see how these lists have finished out, and then see how many of these chaos make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, I would like to see some people getting through to those playoffs. I'd like to see some people placing. Obviously, it's a big field, 180 lists.
And we
Oh,
only
twin-
make up 20 of it. So
We are
Literally over half of them are Imperium players. Like,
yeah, I
there's
have
like
the
94 or
full
something.
breakdown is, if I can get to the, out of the 180, we have 97 Imperium, 20 Chaos, 47 Xenos, and 16 Eldari.
And of those 16 Eldari, 15 are Harlequins. It's going to be something along those lines. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like, we're only one list in 9, so but I think that we've got a lot of ability to punch above our like a lot of those lists are good lists. Like Tabletop Sim lets people bring the things that they've always wanted to bring, but that isn't always like a tuned list, like we saw with the 3 Lords of War Forge World.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's just that's somebody playing out their fantasy, and more power to you. Like that's going to be a fun set of games. But yeah, I can see a lot of the Imperium players, a lot of the Xenos players experimenting more, trying out things that are a bit weirder, and maybe that'll work in their favor, maybe that won't. I mean, we've seen some experimental stuff in this, some that'll work in favor, some that won't. But it's going to be interesting and good fun, and I'd like to see these lists and how they go. So thank you very much for inviting me on.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. And
Thank you very much.
God, it's
We see each
wonderful
other
morning.
All right, and then at the bottom in the you'll see all the different links to Alpha League, our Discord, the Tabletop Simulator Discord, and a couple other Reddit pages that we've discussed throughout this discussion. So
yeah.
All right.
Going to sign off. I'm Local2368. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on the IronTiger's Discord. Please get in touch if you're interested in anything we've brought up during today. Thank you very much.
Cool. I'm Cold Psycher, not on Twitter, but I am on the Discord.
It's Psycho, also not on Twitter, on the Discord, also on Reddit. Well, you hope to see you out there.
See you around.
All right.